What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the Counting Wisdom podcast. I wanted to talk a little bit about Israel today. Wanted to talk a little bit about heaven today, and just tie in a little bit about the rapture. There is a Bible verse that talks about, I believe, clearly two comings of Jesus, and I'm going to mention that soon, and we can kind of talk about that. But before we get started, hey, if anyone would like to subscribe to this channel, please feel free to go ahead and do so. I make videos about the rapture. I make videos about just general Bible education. Is kind of a word to use, but just I try to make encouragement videos, and then also just talk a little bit about heaven and really all Bible topics. So if you're new to this channel, please hit that subscribe button, and let's get started. So Israel, Israel is in the news right now, and there's a lot of Bible prophecy that comes with Israel in the end times. And so I think that we have to really just put everything to perspective, that Christ must be getting closer and closer. I mean, just think about it from the standpoint of Israel becoming a nation in 1948. Then you have World War I, which I believe people back then were saying, hey, this is the end times. Then you have World War II. And, honestly, side note here, you would think that people would learn, like, we shouldn't fight anymore, but the Bible says it's a spiritual war that's going on. You would think people would learn from a fight that, that just caused so much bloodshed, and let's try to work out our differences. That would be kind of the natural response in a way, but no. The Bible clearly says there's a spiritual war going on. There are some, before I get more into Israel and the rapture, so there is a word that is used, and it's called the first fruits. And Paul brings out kind of a sorry, I had to pause it for a second, but what I'm trying to say, hopefully I didn't lose my place here because I had to pause this recording. But so in 1 Corinthians 15:23, there's a Bible verse that says, "But each in turn, Christ the firstfruits, then when he comes, those who belong to him." Let me read a different translation. New Living Translation says, "But there is an order to this resurrection. Christ was raised at the first of the harvest. Then all who belong to Christ will be raised when he comes back." But I think the New King James Version really brings out what I'm trying to say. New King James Version says, "But each in his own order. Christ the firstfruits. Afterward, those who are Christ at his coming." And then verse 24, I should just read that. "Then comes the end, when he delivers the kingdom to God the Father, when he puts an end to all rule and all authority and all power." So, I believe that it's saying, especially, I don't think the New Living Translation really brought this out, but the King James Version does, and it's saying there is two groups of people, I believe. When we kind of try to understand how there's a rapture and then there's a second coming, it says Christ the first fruits, and then it says those at his coming, and then he said then comes the end. And so I believe, even though it doesn't necessarily spell it out 100% clear, but I believe there is a group which is waiting for the rapture, which is Christ the first fruits. And then it says those who are those who are at his coming. So it clearly says there's a coming, and then there is those who are ready when it's Christ coming for the first fruits. I have a few examples of the first fruits word being used in some sort of context that can help us understand that. And I want to bring that out real quick. This is a few examples of it. 1 Corinthians 16:15 says, I urge you, brethren, the household of Stephanas, that it is the firstfruits of Achaia, and that they have devoted themselves to the ministry of the saints. So clearly he's saying Stephanas, the household of Stephanas was the firstfruits of Achaia. Firstfruits is used, you can kind of understand the context that they were like the first believers in Achaia. 2 Thessalonians 2:13 says, but we ought always to give thanks to God for you, brothers, beloved by the Lord, because God chose you as the firstfruits to be saved, through sanctification by the Spirit and belief in the truth. So clearly there are first fruits, and it implies that when you talk about first fruits, it doesn't mean it's gathering the whole harvest. It means just the first bundle of fruits that you get, but it implies that there's more fruit to be taken. You could kind of put it in the context of second fruits or third fruits, but you get the idea. James 1:18 says, of his own will he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. So there's a lot of debate about kind of what eternity looks like, and I don't think I'm going to touch on that. I've brought it up in different podcasts, but if there is a first fruits, it implies that there are a separate group that is to be counted as believers, but maybe I'm just taking it too literally, but we as believers, at least for those who believe in the rapture, believe in some general segment of timeline that there is first a rapture, and then there is a second coming of Christ, and where he comes to the earth and establishes his millennial kingdom. And then after the millennial kingdom comes the end of this part of life, and it's only for those who are saved in eternity, for the rest of eternity. And so when are the second fruits and third fruits? Well, I think this gives strong evidence for the millennium, that there will be those people who are saved during the millennium. Some people try to say, no, there's no millennium here on earth, or they'll say it's only in heaven with believers. But clearly, there is, at least what the word is used is, or a word we can use is insinuated, there's an insinuation here going on that if there's a first, there's a second, and possibly a third, until your whole harvest is gathered together. And so I just wanted to bring out that point that, there is strong evidence for the rapture. And even when Paul spells it out in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, I think it was verse 23 that the first verses that we read, he gives out a spelling of, the whole timeline is a short, brief timeline of, the world. It's Christ the first fruits, then those who are alive at his second coming, or at his coming, and then comes the end. And so, again, when you're looking at those who are alive at his coming, it doesn't necessarily imply that there are people saved during the millennium, because it says at his coming, and we believe that the millennium is after the second coming of Christ. But maybe people are right about the millennium being in heaven. I'm not going to really go into, I know I've been wrestling with if there's a millennium, in heaven, or if there's millenniums on earth. I know Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 does give that kind of brief overview of eternity, but I know that in Revelation it says that the martyrs die and reign with Christ for 1,000 years. But one point that I like to bring out is that it doesn't necessarily mention that the 1,000 years are on earth. Now, we can kind of piece it together, maybe using Isaiah, and some passages elsewhere. But, I do believe in a millennium. That's what I hold to until maybe I discover something else. But a lot of things we're going to have to wait and see. It doesn't change, what we're supposed to do. We're all supposed to put our faith in Jesus Christ, believe in the gospel, keep his commandments. So I just wanted to bring that out for any of those who are interested in more of a study on the rapture. I just wanted to bring that out about the first fruits. Okay, so back to Israel. Thanks for listening to that. Sorry if that was confusing. But anyway, there's a lot going on in Israel. I wanted to just touch back on what I was saying in the beginning was there's a lot going on in the world. Talk about just with the microscope, you can see different crimes happening, different unrest happening within our nation and other nations around the world. And then in a broader scope, you see wars. There was a conflict in Sudan that I believe is still going on. That maybe the news coverage goes to one and then the other. We were covering the Russia and Ukraine war, and now we're going to Hamas and Israel. And then there's earthquakes that are happening, and I believe Jesus is saying that we're going to see all of these things taking place at once. And when you think about it, there needs to be some unrest to happen for the Antichrist to make a peace treaty with Israel, and that's what some scholars say that is what kicks off the tribulation is, the peace treaty that's made with Israel. And so, I think it's just, this is the time to put your faith in Jesus Christ. This is the time to turn away from sin and be right with God. God doesn't want you to perish. He wants all people to be saved, even though he knows that they're not going to, but his desire is that he saves everyone. But we are given how to be saved, and that is by putting our faith in Jesus Christ. is to believe in the one who died on the cross and rose again on the third day. And we are also to just walk in God's ways, walk in righteousness, walk in holiness, and turn away from sin. Every day we're examining our life to just really, make sure that we are walking according to God's word. And so, I believe that, we have to be getting closer to the rapture. I think it has to be so, because there's so much going on. We see just different things happening in the world, and it's like, man, it's just one thing after another, besides all the stuff that we kind of think has sort of passed, like the COVID, certain events, big events have already passed, but yet it is really like, a domino effect. And it's like, one thing happens and then another thing and another thing. And so this is all leading up to the tribulation, which, I don't think we need to try to figure out every detail, for those who aren't necessarily interested in the fine details of the tribulation and the rapture and, the book of Revelation. Yeah, I don't think it's necessary for every believer. I think that, we have our main goals, our main objective in the Christian life. We are to work on being a disciplined person. We're working on, the things that I've already talked about righteousness. And, so those things, you can really focus on. But, it is good to know for sure what God says is going to happen without necessarily getting into debates about, the millennium or, even the rapture. I believe there is strong evidence for, both of those, but yet it's not necessarily necessary to completely understand for salvation. We have what we need to understand for salvation. And so let's shift over to heaven as I shift towards the end of this podcast. Heaven is going to be amazing. I just want to give a reminder, like I do in all of my podcasts about heaven, is that there's no pain in heaven. There's no sorrow in heaven. God is going to wipe away all of our tears. We can even receive a new name given to us by Jesus Christ, which he says no man knows but the one who receives it, which implies that I don't think he's saying that no one else will ever know our name, but I think it implies that we're going to be introducing ourselves all over again. In a way, it implies newness, and you're going to be going up to people instead of saying, "Oh, my name is Ben." No, you're going to be saying your new name. You're going to be saying, "Hi, how are you? This is my name." And I think it implies that to people we already know, we're going to be telling them our new name. And then, heaven just, there is, I believe, sort of a memory wipe in regards to evil. God says this in the book of Isaiah. He says that I create a new heavens and a new earth, and the former will not be remembered. And so I believe this definitely applies to all the painful situations that we've been in, light or heavy, all the sad circumstances, and just all the things that we've heard about other people and other nations. We're going to no longer be burdened with those thoughts and those memories. And I think this just goes back to that fresh start that we're going to have. I don't fully agree, and I don't really know, but I don't fully agree that our complete memory is going to be wiped once we get to heaven. I think when God says the former things will not be remembered, it could just be, strictly applying to, the old earth will not be remembered, like what it looks like. But I believe it also implies in the substance of earth, which is the events that took place. But I don't think it's a complete memory wipe where we won't necessarily remember who our kids were or who we were married to or, who our mom and dad was or who our pastor was, or we won't know who our friend at church is. No, that would be kind of crazy, right? If you don't even remember that you were friends with someone at church, and I can't fully say that anything in a definite way, because the scriptures just tell us general ideas about heaven, general facts about heaven. But anyway, there's no more pain, there's no more sorrow, there's no more suffering. God is telling us this to, I think, encourage us to keep on pushing forward, even though the days get harder. And what we talked about earlier in this podcast is that we see the day drawing near. I think without a doubt, the day is drawing near. And I think we, are going to see more signs, but I don't even think we fully need too many more signs to really conclude that the day is drawing near, especially for those who may have doubted. And so we are to keep pushing on towards heaven. A podcast yesterday about how, our room in heaven is going to be amazing. I think the place that we live is just going to be, so comforting and so breathtaking, that the beauty in heaven, I believe, is just going to be amazing. The peace that we're going to have, just the lifestyle, we are told that we don't know what we're going to be like other than we're going to be like Jesus, which implies that, we're going to be more than just human beings. I believe we're going to have more abilities. I don't know what that will look like. I said this, I think, in my podcast yesterday, that maybe we'll be able to fly. Some pastors believe that, we'll be able to teleport with our body like Jesus did at the end of, I think, pretty much all the Gospels. He just walked into a room without opening the door. So, but yet the Bible clearly says that we don't know what we're going to be like, but we just know that we're going to be like Jesus. But it hasn't fully been revealed to us what is going to fully take place. And so that's something to look forward to, because it's good. I think we've all sort of desired to be a little bit more than human, just seeing, kind of our limitations. It's going to be amazing to have more ability to just live life and have that ease. Things like not having enough money to buy something that you need or even want, I think is going to be gone. Not having something that you need, like a car to get around, or wanting a job but you don't have one, or needing a new body. Maybe some failing part in your body is just not working right, and that's going to be taken away. I can go on, but there's just so many benefits of putting your faith in Jesus Christ. And again, God wants this for everyone. He told Adam and Eve, hey, you guys need to eat of the tree of life, basically, and don't eat of the knowledge of good and evil. But they disobeyed. And so just imagine, I think, righteousness. I think especially those who are in that active fight against sin, just having that relief of not being plagued with evil. For a time in our life, yeah, we all participated in something evil. But once you become a Christian, I believe that your mind just shifts. And now evil is a burden to you. Evil is, going against the current. And, we're going to have that relief and that peace in our mind and in our heart that I don't think we can fully experience here in this life. Imagine not being tempted to sin, or I think it will go as far as not even thinking about sin. You don't have something cross your mind like, oh, I'm going to look at pornography, or I'm going to check out that person in a sexual way, or, it could be anything, whatever it is for you. I'm thinking about, something sinful, and, those things are not even going to cross our mind, I believe. Scriptures do imply that, Christ came to take away our sin, and in him there is no sin. And so, heaven is going to be a place with no sin. And I think that is just a huge one to kind of pause and think about. And so, anyway, thanks so much for checking out this podcast. I wanted to cover the rapture. I wanted to cover a little bit about Israel. I think we just have to keep looking up, keep looking ahead. And, if we are living in, the time of the rapture, which I think it's becoming more apparent that we just might be. It might be very soon, Now, we don't know when, maybe, I think these things, as far as end times events, does take some time to play out. But at the same time, the book of Revelation says these things must happen soon. And so, at some point, the word soon doesn't have that definition anymore, and when God used that word, he wrote it in stone that, the word soon has to always mean soon. Another 5,000 years can't go by and that Bible verse still be true, that soon means soon. You get what I'm saying, is that at some point, irregardless of, if it's in God's timing or our timing, the word soon lacks the truthfulness and the definition of it if it's not around the corner. It has to be. And so thanks so much for checking out this podcast. Hopefully you found it interesting today, and it's exciting to just see end times play out, even though there is a loss that's happening in end times. It's a bittersweet thing. We know that people are not choosing Jesus. We know there's violence happening in Israel, and we know that there are people dying, and it's also, I believe, a time of mourning, that we are just mourning for those that are lost, but we're also excited for the hand that Jesus extended out to all of humanity for eternal life. And so, thanks so much, and I will talk to you on the next one. See ya.